Okay. The issue has come up. Boy, they can frame you or say anything and have it set where the person doesn't know that you really survived that and the true facts, and you're going to say, no, that can't be. Or they have a fixed, corrupt official. And the issue is then, what proof do I have? Well, I've been saying I'll take a polygraph lie detector test on any TV editor's desk, any newspaper editor's desk. If there's a group out there that says, hey, yeah, we'll challenge you. You take the lie detector test and we'll publicize it because we have a way of getting to the public. Okay, fine. With stipulation, you have to publish the results. And they will show I'm telling the truth. Now, the boisterous analyzer, which I pushed and did a little work on, because I figured this is my best chance of proving what I say. Like right now, you put this on the boisterous analyzer, it proves I'm saying the truth. What proof do I have? Let me think back spontaneously maybe and try chronologically. There is a University of Rochester. I did work on the campus. I got employment there. I did attend a meeting there at the cyclotron building, which was guarded. You had to sign in and sign out because I figured that would be the most secretive in reference to an H-bomb. I had studied Enrico Fermi's work and had noticed that there are two fusions every time you have a fission. You radiate two neutrons. It continues the chain reaction. Well, when you radiate these two neutrons, they have to be fused in order to obtain then the splitting of fission. And on the surface of the sun, you get the fission-fusion chain reaction called solar flares. And that's a true fact. And they did have the Super Manhattan Project at Los Alamos. I did insist, because now Hoover, they came in my home and put in a new phone. In fact, an entire new line in the city of Rochester. And my phone number was 1199X. Well, that's what the number was. And I pick up the phone and you can sometimes even, I swear, you hear some, the clicks, and maybe even back then, that time, you got to hear a little noise of moving and so forth. That's what the true facts are. I did have a relative. I did win my division in boxing. I know how to box. I did have a relative who, I picture his name here, from Philadelphia, and I think they used to call him Rocky. I don't take the time to look back and find, I don't know if I can find that. I kept it for years, that picture, but you can check. You can check. I had a relative, and I won't say his name, but he was a boxer, and I think they called him Rocky, and he killed in World War II, so I was writing a patriotic book, which I have, and tried to publish. It's called Under Oath. Put my hand on the Bible and everything I say, like in court. The scene was a court scene, and I'm in court, and put my hand on the Bible. I'm under oath. Everything I say is the truth. And I tried to make a movie, and I went to a friend of mine, son, and he said, well, he says, I'd like to make a movie. He says, but it would cost $100,000 to verify the truth. I said, what are you talking about? For $25,000, I think we can present at least a documentary of my true facts. We just put that on. He said, no, we got to do it if it's a movie the way we do the movies. You know, they research it and they get somebody to play you, and that's big money they got to pay them. Look, I look like myself. I told her myself. Why can't I play myself? Won't cost anything. Be more truthful. We can go with a documentary like what? I call it JFK. That initials alone, that movie would draw. Voila. Within 2 years comes JFK. Courtroom scene. Isn't that correct? I say, well, a coincidence. Well, you keep track of the coincidences. Those who say, no, they are prejudiced, or they have a doubt. Thinking back now, try chronologically. I did work for Eastman Kodak, an experimental lab. We were going to color photography, and I did use the old mimeograph machine to make copies, and so you get too much fluid, it's sort of a purplish ink, or not enough, or it would start good and then kind of run less, and it would skip. And I figured, hey, we are the best optical engineers in the world. There has to be a better way. How? Well, you get a tremendous carbon arc flash like you'd have in a carbon arc flash for a spotlight in World War II. And it takes the diffused lighting. It's a parabolic, by mathematics, it's a parabolic mirror. And when it hits that parabolic mirror, it bounces into rays, and those rays come out parallel, and you get that parallel powerful beam. Well, now, what I can do, if I can get that powerful beam reinforced in a staccato, now we can go up and hit an ICBM, which now they have us beat, because they did it von Braun's way, and my way was to do it the way it was done, how they were successful. The only thing that surprised me was the weight. Now, these voice analyzers are actually prove I'm saying the truth, of course. So then, what name to give it? Well, I have light, and I use initials. I have light, and I stimulate this light by vibrating a ruby crystal. And I've got research books. Like right now on my desk, you see, they want me to argue about morality and law and maybe a war and strife and you know, things that are chit chat, and you'd have to prove in a court of law. Right now to my left, I have concised. Right at the top is the universe and Dr. Einstein, which I studied day and night for 2 years. You know, backwards and forwards, I can almost recite what was on each page. I've rewritten the book twice, and I conferred with Einstein. Now, let's see, I want to say this in chronological order. In April 1955, it's quite a few years ago, and it took me a year before look, I've stood, see, I have to jump forward in order for her to verify. I stood face to face with J. Edgar Homo Hoover. It finally was set up because, look, they say they study you so they know you. They can hit you before you can do something. Well, I studied them. I studied especially Homo Hoover. And so I knew the fella forward and backwards, or backwards and forwards, because he was an immoral, bent-for-over politician fella. And if push comes to shove, if a group out there says, all right, we accept the challenge. You pay for the polygraph test, and we'll put it on publicly. let's do it. Because then I'll say something that you'll say, you really did that? Well, the only way I can prove it is through a polygraph lie detector test or a body stress analyze. So yeah, I have what was my main interest was science and inventions. And as I look at them, in there, I came to the realization that Einstein's philosophy, and the author is a Lincoln Barnett, B-A-R-N-E-T-T. Well, I finally located Mr. Lincoln Barnett, and when I was in upstate New York again, I think he lived in Connecticut, somewhere in New England, and I finally got him on the phone, and at length went over this book, and I said, I wanted him to represent me and write a book about Doc Castellano. Excuse me, pardon me. Doc, called Joseph Doc, and I got that from one of our top men in futuristic thinking. Well, we had a little contest in a science club, and they said, well, we want this solved. And I did it in 30 seconds. And he says, oh, you're joking. I said, no, look. He says, yeah. He said, look, I've just written the name and kind of studying the title. He says, you got it solved. He says, he's the doctor. Call him Doc, because they're all PhDs, doctor, PhDs. And so I says, well, then why not? I do the work. I'm talking to those who have a PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, expertise in mathematical physics. So Einstein's philosophy was you had to think irrationally and then use a mathematical schema, mathematical symbols to represent this irrational thinking, to represent what really occurs in the universe. And in my opinion, I think rational man thinks rationally, with 2 feet on the ground, coming up with a sound, valid representation that's rational and will keep its validity, in my opinion, for all time, or certainly longer than some mathematical schema. Because if you just improve on the mathematics, which they constantly do, you're going to then at least improve on it or change it to something more modern that's more valid. And that's, most of them will do it. We're doing it that way. They didn't like him because of his politics, but Max Born took Schrodinger's great work, and I studied Schrodinger, and I went to Ireland, and one of the things I did there was to visit their Academy of Science, the Royal Academy of Science, and Schrodinger left Germany and was their featured research specialist there, and Schrodinger put forward wave mechanics. And so you have string theory. I did string theory based on Schrodinger's work. And now with Einstein, in this book, I modernized, is the polite way I put it to him, his Lorentz-Einstein transformation equation. Well, I call it the Einstein transformation equation because of the famous publicity. And in conferring with me and in my theoretical proof, which was, I want to do this in 30 minutes, is that the standard is, it's rho. I use rho, but it's P now because tip-tap, and they use a P. So, but I'm going to do it the way I did it, and then say maybe how it's done modernly if I have to. It's rho equals mvr. And this is momentum equals velocity times mass, and it's circular momentum. Well, if you set r to unity, now you have rho equals mv. So you can then get it where it's tangential, rho equals mv. Now if my rho prime, m prime, v prime, r would equal the r of Einstein, and you set that to unity, now my rho prime, I'll say p prime, m prime, v prime equals your p equals mv. In the laboratory at that time, you could calculate, and was mentioned, they were equaling the velocity of light where they put particles, some on top of particles. Now, if they publicly say that, secretly, they maybe have particles that increment greater velocity than the velocity of light. Now, when you, even if it's an increment, go greater than the velocity of light, you have broken the light barrier. And that's the way I presented it. I have absolute proof of breaking the light barrier. In your day, Einstein, you're breaking the sound barrier. Now, in my opinion, going forward, breaking the light barrier. And he said, well, like when? And I said, well, it's 1955. I figured, well, probably by 1975 and probably at CERN. And I have to think back. See, I couldn't keep notes with Hoover because then he would say, I got to knock that fellow off, like he knocked off those who tried to get him out. Like who? Like President Kennedy. Like who? The lawyer I went to that says we're going to get him legally. He died the day before. He died just before I would sign with him when we start legal proceedings. Like Melvin Purvis. Melvin Purvis was being pushed to replace that questionable Hoover, and Melvin Purvis was getting out, kicked out of the FBI he was moved out of the FBI by Hoover, found dead. Hoover ruled he was shot himself. Mrs. Purvis says, you're a liar, Hoover. I would call Hoover more than just a liar, besides homo Hoover, which I'm forced to, that's what the fellow was. Now, so I have done an equation I call the capital C transformation equation. Because, and my m prime, v prime, r, I explained in my finite particle theory, as my m prime becomes ever more infinitesimal as it goes towards infinity, it is so fine, it has to be lighter mass than your m. Now, if they're an increment greater than the velocity of light, then my v prime has to be greater than your v. And he agreed to such a degree, because they said, what sheepskins do you have, formal sheepskins do you have? Well, Hoover forced me in conditions I could barely live or barely survive. I'm not alive because he wanted me to be alive. I had to survive. And I had an injury during World War II, and but I found that I could still do my science when it came to science and inventions better even than when I was a whiz kid, made 4 years high school and 3 A's in physics and math. So they would call me the man boy, Man X. And there was a TV show about a private solver of crime, Joe Man X. Now, so I have done my capital C transformation equation. You see, I say all of these spontaneous. Try to say them in chronological order. Here I have my books, stack of them, to the minimum together. And I have my capital C transformation equation, which is capital X prime equals capital X minus VT over the square root of 1 minus V squared over capital C squared, where capital C is at least equal to or greater than your little c, the velocity of light. And Einstein agreed. And then when I would say, as we would confer, and it was done, you get the notes of his secretary. It's amazing, the official things that nobody mentions, and where are they? You get the notes from his living secretary. It was a three-way conversation on a three-way phone. She would take down in shorthand because he wanted to speak in German. And I say the joke, and I say, well, The only German I can think of at the moment is Ein Streich, zwei Sphere, who's going to buy the beer? And he laughed. Now, he agreed with me that with my boldness and his desire and expertise, we would work together towards a unified field theory, which he wanted to solve, and I had the basis, what I considered would be a valid unified field theory. Well, he dropped dead the night before we were to begin work on that. Now, that's a true fact. Now, what other books do I have here? Yeah, I have my books that are basic of what I always have to start from a plain sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, and say, what do I have to resolve? And now what do I need to know? Do I know that? If not, I have to brush up on the basics of it to get to where, then I say, okay, from here now I got to solve it. And then I do it, or you would do it on your own. There's no reference book, no professor. That's your own work. And by the Bill of Rights, it's in the Bill of Rights, a man's work, the Constitution Bill of Rights, a man's work is his. No matter what anybody says, that's the law of the land. It's the Constitution Bill of Rights. They now say there's a statute of limitations, and various rules. No, it's the law of the land. Now, what other proof do I have? I went from a cyclotron building secretly at a U of R, the cyclotron, to I call it Atom Smasher. Now I'm in Washington, D.C., talking to representatives, senators, the Attorney General's office. He can hear me, I can hear him. After work, I would confer at the university there towards futuristic particles, a quantity of mass and velocities at least equal to or greater than the velocity of light. Now it's called a super atom smasher. I think it was the Betatron. See, so I kind of made a circle there from the Atom Smasher U of R secretly over now to I'm in Washington, D.C., working in engineering, survey, construction, is whoever would have me. Just the opposite, because of what I really am and what I'm doing and what I want to be. Which actually, I know who I am, what I've achieved, of course. And now we get to, we're going to go fast forward because it's 23 minutes, where I would be sent on a project where I'm the instrument man using the autolite, because I could look over the instruments and calculate how it should be done, and then look on the instruments for magnification and precision. And I did all my work within tolerance. And especially with the theodolite, I would zero it. I could zero it, and then we could keep track precisely what it would be from zero, and besides the actual precision of the theodolite. When I did that on a big project, they refused to accept the notes. They said, no, it can't be. This is what I achieved in civil engineering. They would send me out to, they were in a bind. Things were fouled up. They'd given up. And I go out there and say, okay, let's get together. Let's start. And I had to be careful because on purpose or accidentally, I would look over the instrument. Because if you're busy looking at the instrument, they can move your work. And then it wouldn't be right. So I had to practice that if I suspect somebody, I would do this and then look up and say, you're moving where I put that. And I says, yeah, I think it's like, let me think back. I mean, he moved it about 4 inches. Yeah, he moved it back. I says, yeah, I can zero up on that now. Okay, with the transit, it was to you had to zero up with the transit, do 3 direct and 3 inverted. You read it 6 times. Still did all work with intolerance. And say, no, he said it. I run what's called bench levels with the precision one. First you do it, you could do it with the transit, but you really had to have a real good level. There was the Y level, and then they got a real good one. I think that was maybe from Zeiss Company also. And you could read that to thousands. And I did it so precise that the Bureau of Land Management came up and says, you know, we've been kind of following your work, and we noticed that it's right. And to tell you the truth, we've changed some of ours, corrected up to what you have. Thank you. Now, as far as science and mathematics now, I have that to my left here, just within a few inches of this internet. That's my stack of science books. To my right, I have a bigger desk. And bless her soul, this was my sister Rita's desk. It's really elegant, really, and I have all this, the least concise of, it's called the Bible of Physics, the Handbook of Physics. It's so authentic, it's called the Bible of Physics. And in my peak, when I had time, I started to rewrite that book. What I thought was more representative. Now, you're getting to, it's like somebody in a discipline of theology rewriting the Bible. That's what that challenge is, and I can reach out and just about touch that book. But I have a book concise of the Bible on top of it, because now my main interest is not science and inventions, it's in the discipline of theology. Man's greatest challenge. Why are we here? How did we get here? Why are we here? What best to do? And then below that, I have a book of more chit-chat of mathematical physics, where they explain it. And then I have some books where you get to where they go over the basics and show you examples, just to be sure, because I have to usually start from scratch and study what I have to know in order to now improve on what needs to be improved on, or a challenge. Like I say, I did security work, and I used to be a security officer at Caltech. Caltech was a little school. They cared about rocks. And I used to joke and say, oh, you rockheads, what you got to do is modernize. Like there's MIT, let's get them to modernize, get some of your big work here. Voila. Caltech became all new equipment, all modernized. That's what I was saying when I was working there, and it was just a little school. Coincidence? Well, yeah, you keep track of these coincidences. If I'm not going to be president, because Catholic Italian descent, how about Joe's son? He's tall, and especially girls want a tall, attractive man. Oh, they attracted to him. And I think he could really put forward. Plus, you need all those tough Irishmen to fight for you. Isn't that a true fact? But the Church of England are vicious against Irish Catholics. And when he wanted to replace Hoover, and Hoover and English intelligence worked together. Yeah, absolutely. It was, I invented the Xerox. I worked for Rochester, New York. I lived in Rochester, New York, worked for Eastman Kodak Experimental Development Lab. In there, and then I said we had to do better than that old mimeograph machine. and I did the work with a patent officer. And you look in the phone book of Sacramento at that year, 1957. You have to think back in the yellow pages. I started with ZROX because I used to listen to a science program by DuPont de Nemours of the greatest scientists. And I says, well, I'm doing real good. A's in physics and math, and it's interesting. Playing baseball, I think my chance is to play baseball, especially for the Cardinals. The Rochester Red Wings were their top farm club, and I was a better second baseman than we had at that time. I was a better second baseman than anybody I saw around, really. The speed, the ability, have to improve as I got older, a little bigger, to improve my little power and hitting. But outside of that, definitely, plenty to beat. My idol was Ty Cobb. I was very aggressive. I didn't know he was that mean, but he had 96 stolen bases. You say nobody beat that. I figured maybe I can get 100. And nobody can get me out going from first to second. And he actually went from first to third on one pitch, I think. And that's what I was practicing. See, I say all these things spontaneous, unrehearsed, but unboisterous, analyze the truth. Well, if I don't play for the Cardinals, I'll ever play for the Yankees, and I get together with Joe DiMaggio, Tony Lazzeri. Yeah. Joey Tony Lazzeri, Frank Rossetti. Like that joke by Goofy Gomez. When the ball was hit to him, all he kept hearing was Joe, Joe, Joe. All the girls were shouting at Joe DiMaggio. So he turns around, throws the ball out there towards center field. And Joe says, what the heck are you doing? He says, all I hear is Joe, 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 Joe. He says, so when I turned around, I saw so many Latin lovers, I just threw it to you, Joe. If I ever got with them, I don't think we'd lose a game. Because then I would be the leadoff batter at speed. And I had all those great hitters, so forth. True fact. Studied baseball from a scientific viewpoint to where I could be, like I would joke, I could be half asleep and half drunk and do better than what some of them were supposed to be experts were talking about baseball. No, it's over 32 minutes. Well, I'll try to concise. Hey, been many years, right? From 1947 to now. Well, let me see. Oh, yeah. Lightification of electromagnetic radiation. Say, lightification of electromagnetic radiation. Did it in 2 weeks' time. Because they came to me with almost tears in their eyes. We experimented your brother to death. We've been horrible crimes against you, your father's family, and you, your family, and me. And yeah, they beat us your way. And now they can hit us, like you say, they can hit us now on the first strike and beat us. What can you do? Well, all right. Day and night. 2 weeks' time, I came up with lightification of electromagnetic radiation. Took light, amplified it by stimulating a ruby crystal. It's EM waves, electromagnetic radiation. Laser. Futuristic multi-purpose coin beam. The first thing I did was to use it for sightless people, because I also worked on what vision is, and the greatest challenge I thought is if they could ever let me be like Edison, where I'm publicly known and I have a staff. I would like to see what I could do as far as helping sightless people. But Hoover needed me for international cloak and dagger. Just in the gutter. Everything is from there. Everything is down into the gutter fight. And I noticed that if somebody had mentioned or something about Hoover and he didn't like him, I didn't see him around anymore. Because Hoover could send anybody any place he wanted to. And then maybe they didn't come back. That's a true fact. No. So I survived and lived, not because really Hoover wanted me to, because barely survived accidents by a split second. What other proof do I have? I was in the Justice Department. They got to have records there. Take a polygraph lie detector test, face-to-face with Robert Kennedy, because I was trying to save his life. I thought Hoover might knock him off that night. Absolute true fact. Face-to-face with J. Homo Hoover. That would be at least interesting, don't you think? Because I'm telling the truth. I am who I say I am. They owe me honors and many, many millions of dollars. Xerox alone grosses over $20 billion a year. How many years have they been functioning? You understand? They've completely turned it the other way around. You've got it where they're going to control the population, and they got that population of the U.S. where when they want to have a war, they fix the reports by Slick Willie Webster and the English got together. They had 50 votes, they needed 51, and then they falsified the reports, and they got 51. And the House of Commons themselves exposed that the English falsified it with the U.S. True fact. I didn't put the House of Commons on that international TV that you could see them every day that proved it. What proof do I have? How much more proof do you need? So that's the way I have to present every day the true facts. I demand reasonable honors and financial compensation. I thank you.